Welcome to AHA, a human among humans. Thanks to your help, I hope we're all getting closer. And I have as my guest one of the most human beings. Yes?
Is it possible to be more human than someone else? Aren't we all humans? I mean, unless you're talking to a cyborg or a centaur.
Such a good. Not only is he such a human being to spread the wealth, but brings these very moving pictures. What is a cyborg is
a part robot, right?
Part
robot. Now, I might argue that if you have like a mechanical pacemaker or a steel rod or something like that, cataract replacement. So you're cyborg. You're partially robot, right?
Yeah, it feels good actually.
Now, not only that, but in today's day and age, I feel like our beings, our essences, are not constrained to our physical bodies, but our our avatars on social media and our personas, our digital footprint, may be also part of the definition of who we are as humans. So in that realm, we're all cyborgs.
Oh, even now.
Now,
we're communicating to people, right?
yes.
And they think they're communicating with us?
Yes, but we're just, digitalated pixels.
Yes.
On the
But it feels very...
squawky box.
Barbara might be watching. It feels very loving and touching.
Yes, it does.
Well, thank you for that. My name is Michael Koran. This is Will... memory.
Well, we're just going to take your guess and decide that it's the way to go.
Will Kurtz.
Sure, okay, we'll take it.
Yes, we will, because it's the famous short story I don't know about. Anyway, I am going to share riddles and story jokes with Will. And he, because of fortune cookie fame, he takes fortune cookies and these poor innocent fortune cookies.
Hey, they're not innocent.
No?
No. It's Big Fortune Cookie that's behind it.
Okay. So I don't know who's behind this joke, but Will is a scathing, healing critic. He will find what is wrong with something, and therefore we're open to a new way of life. For example, one of my favorite quotes by my former sweetheart, Barbara Michaels, is every moment is a gift, even if it sucks.
And we've done that one.
Yes, and Will has shown that ain't quite true. So all I can say is every moment may be a gift, even if it sucks. Doesn't quite have the same punch, but it's truer.
Yeah, but sometimes hyperbole is truer than truth, don't you think? No, I don't know.
Well, you just showed me that my hyperbole wasn't.
I know. I was just trying to contradict your point that it was agreeing with my old point, because that's what I do here.
It keeps the conversation. So here's my favorite riddle.
Okay.
Which I used to, and I introduce it by saying, this will explain your life.
Okay.
You might have heard it, but we'll go through it again. So where did you go to the first grade?
Where did I go to the first grade?
Yes.
Barnet Elementary School in Barnet, Vermont.
Oh, so no wonder you're such a human among humans. You grew up in Vermont?
For a few years, yeah. My family lived in Vermont for a few years. And a very rural area, and actually in my in first grade I went to the old one room schoolhouses, one classroom schoolhouses that they used to teach in the 1800s, and then in between first grade and second grade they built like a state-of-the-art big elementary school that housed all the grades. But before then they had each grade would take up one of the local schoolhouses that were left over from the old time days.
So you were all first graders.
We were all first graders and then the second graders were in another domicile.
Do you remember your teacher's name?
Mrs. Dune, yes, or
Miss-
Ms. Dune. I don't recall if she was
important.
Ms., Mrs., or
Very important distinction.
Well, excuse me. It's
I was
like
just saying,
32
I wasn't
years ago.
criticizing you. I said it's an important distinction. Did you love Miss Dune?
I really liked her a lot. Yeah, I did like her a lot.
So the riddle is, Miss Dune, knowing you were one of the bright lights of the class, if not the brightest light,
I was not the brightest.
and the humblest.
No, there was a guy, Chris Clayton, in the class who was a friend of mine, and he was bigger than me and stronger than me and smarter than me, and I think he got like early admission into like Harvard or something like that later on. I don't know because I moved away, but that's the story that I heard.
Well, the teacher's still focusing on you for your wit and wisdom, said, Will, she gave you a third grade question, I think.
Wow, in the first grade?
Because she thought you were so bright you could handle it in front of the class and inspire all the students. And she said, Will Kurtz, how do you spell crocodile?
Mm-hmm.
And with great confidence, which you've always had, you get up and you look her in the eyes and you take all your classmates in, public speaker that you are, and you say, K-R-O-K, with great confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Dunn looks at you with a little sadness in her eyes, still love for you, and says, I'm sorry, Will Kurtz, but you're wrong. And you stand up in your full first grade height on tiptoes, look her in the eyes, and say, I'm sorry, Miss Dunn, I'm right. And the riddle is, why is young Will Kurtz right? And this, I used to explain your whole life, this one riddle.
Okay, so just to recap, I'm in first grade. The teacher asks me to spell crocodile. I spell crocodile K-R-O-K,
Right?
leaving off the adile, just that.
Well, she stops you then.
She stops me then. And the reason why I was right is because spelling is no longer relevant in today's age.
Brilliant answer, not mine.
If
but
you're on the
brilliant.
internet. No, I don't know. I don't know.
I can give you a hint and you'll get it.
Okay, sure.
Miss Dunn asks you, Will, how
do you spell?
you spell crocodile?
Yep. How do you spell?
And this is what ready for your scathing attacks or appreciations.
Mm-hmm.
I take that to explain your life. You've done it your way, and you've been right.
I mean, I get it's, I get the riddle. I get what it's doing. I mean, it's catching you in a logistical or a semantic loophole, right? That's what it is. It's a semantic loophole that it's catching you in. That's the clever part of the riddle. But do I agree? I kind of don't agree because it's like...
That's what we're paying him big bucks for, to bring him into your living rooms.
I mean, it's just like, I think that there's a thing in culture that it's like, you do you, or, this is my passion or whatever.
Well, I did it my way.
This is my way, right?
Spelled it my way.
And it's like, well, no. It doesn't make it right. It's like, oh, I just do it my way. I know, like, because where does that end? Don't we need to have some sort of agreed upon norms and values and right and wrong?
Let's see now. I certainly have done my life my way. And often, for example, one painful example, I did not get a PhD.
Okay.
I went to the
Neither did I, by the way.
University of Chicago. I was in a PhD program, and I only got a master's. One of the reasons was I wrote on the school bulletin board, the chairman or the acting chairman of the committee is no longer on the committee because he doesn't care for his students.
You were a rebel.
Yes.
Mm.
And they asked me to leave, but they gave me a master's anyway.
They gave you a master's, but not
A PhD.
a PhD. But you know what they say about those advanced degrees.
Yes?
Well, you start off with a BS,
Yes.
and we know what that stands for.
Yeah.
And then MS, more of the same, PhD piled higher and deeper. Have you?
Yeah,
That's an intellectual
yes.
joke.
So I was very critical of myself for writing that on putting that on the school bulletin board and sending it in the mail in case he missed it.
Mm.
And I once tried to get back and get a PhD. They considered it, but they didn't think my work was worthy, actually.
Mm.
They actually just looked at the work. And it's worked out very well. I've taught over 100 different classes at the Cambridge Center for Adult Education.
Wonderful.
Teaching people like you, adults, rather than the college students.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great for me. And so that was how I spelled PhD my way. So so that I'll invite you, maybe you, have you done things and you thought, oh my, I left the beaten track. I've taken the road less traveled.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life, but I don't even know if it's at a certain point, it's not necessarily your decisions so much as where circumstances find you and how you react to them, right?
Well, how you react, though, is your decisions in many ways.
Yes, yes.
Can you think of a specific example? I gave you one, a vulnerable one.
Of
Doing things. I didn't have a choice then either. It was kind of, I created the scene, and then I left and foolishly thought, oh my, I wish I had a PhD for much of my life.
Mm.
I still wouldn't mind getting an honorary one.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly academia is something that I was raised around. Both my parents have PhDs, and
Oh my, so it's the same story.
and I was never great at education. It just wasn't, sitting in a classroom. I love to learn.
Yeah, I can see.
I'm a lifelong student of the world,
Yes.
but I was always antsy in the classroom. I was always staring out the window or doodling in my notebook. I was never a good student. Maybe very early on, like in first grade with Miss Doon. But I was terrible at doing homework. I just, couldn't focus on it. And I've never really been good at, focusing on the thing that people tell me to focus on. I'm much better at pursuing my own interests. And working has always been something that makes a lot of sense to me, having a job and making money. That makes sense to me. There's like a point to it, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone's telling me about something like in a book, I'm like, well, I can read it on my own, right? I don't know. So I at a very young age had jobs. It took me a very long time to get through school. I was off and on and doing it part-time and doing things like interning at CCTV and working on film shoots and stuff like that instead. So it sort of, I think it just in my practical career made it it took me a little longer to get to the point where I felt sort of like I was comfortable and secure in a middle class job than I think it did a lot of others who have a much more kind of more traditional route, so I would say it's kind of similar to your thing. I when I was a kid, I always assumed that I would be sort of in academia because that's what I was raised around. My mom was working on her PhD while I was a child. And it just kind of didn't work out that way. But I'm okay with it, and I kind of, in a way, am a little. I'm somewhat proud of the fact that I've been able to kind of build what I guess is a pretty reasonable life, even though I kind of did it in a less sort of traditional way.
K-R-O-K.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that I think that I can go around spelling words incorrectly just because I say so.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Okay.
I think this is one of my favorite stories. I have told it hundreds of times, if not more. So you go back to Vermont.
Uh-huh.
You just to visit.
Yeah.
And you start climbing one of the Green Mountains.
Wonderful.
There, right?
Yeah.
And you're by yourself. You needed to get away from all of us in the city. And it was somewhat of a brisk day like today, but it had a nice sharpness to it. And you get near the summit on one of the Green Mountains, and you appreciate the beauty of it very much. And uncharacteristically of you, you don't pay attention to what's under your feet. And it got a little icy, it's cold up there.
Yeah.
And you start sliding down the mountain.
Oh boy.
But you've always been, growing up in Vermont, you're pretty good with your hands. And you grab hold of a cold branch of a tree as you're sliding.
Yeah.
And you hold on for a long time, but eventually even you get tired. You can't. And you look around, and you're an imaginative person, and you have not much choice, and you see one cloud in a blue sky, and you say, well, what the hell? And you cry, can anybody, all around, can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Maybe someone could come and help. And you hear from the other side of the cloud. Maybe it's your imagination in this extreme situation. Because you're not a believer in the ordinary sense. I hear you, my son. Just let go of that branch and fall into my arms. And you think for a moment and look around and cry, can anyone else hear me? That has been one of my favorite stories.
Yes, that's a good one. Actually, we brought up my mom earlier, and I remember her telling me that.
Oh, my, no kidding.
Yeah. She told me
wow.
that. That's the first time I heard that one, yeah. So it's good to hear it revived here on the show. And the point of it is, I guess, because if I'm interpreting this correctly, when God says fall into my arms, the guy's just going to fall and die and go to heaven, right?
Maybe, yes.
That's my interpretation.
Yeah.
And since I'm the one holding the log in this scenario, that my interpretation is what's valid, K-R-O-K.
Yeah.
So yeah, because obviously I would rather have like someone who can save me in a more corporeal sense.
Yes. Even bend the log or the tree, the branch, maybe could be bent back.
Yeah.
So I've always taken that to mean, in my better moments, even when I'm sure, when I feel God or the universe is telling me to take this direction, when it's important to always get a second opinion, even if you think God is speaking to you. Well, that's two stories. I can tell you one, if I can remember it well, that I introduced saying, this story will help you relate to anybody, including yourself, much better.
Okay.
It'll explain the challenges of relationships. And so, CCTV is having some financial difficulties, but we still decide maybe if we take our show to Rome, we can raise money from the people in Rome, because they'll just think that CCTV should go international.
Okay.
So we go to Rome, and we have such a good time, as we do, that the Pope, the people started coming to our shows and not coming to Mass.
Mm.
And the Pope said, I'm going to have to talk to you guys. And we decided to send you. You're very eloquent.
Mm-hmm.
We send you to, and as soon as you walk in to St. Peter, the Pope knows you and has heard about you and is, as you folks can see on television, realizes how eloquent you are and says the only way I'll debate you, because he wants us to leave and you want us to stay, it's very warm and nice and stuff.
Yeah.
The only way I'll debate this man is if it's a silent debate, because he knows you're just too good with words.
Okay.
And you're cool. And you nod wordlessly. Oh, okay. And this is the silent debate. The Pope raises 3 fingers. You raise 1. Pope makes a circle around his head. You point to the ground. The Pope takes out bread and wine. You take out an apple from your pocket. And the Pope says, darn it, this man is too eloquent for me. He wins the debate.
Mm-hmm.
CCTV can stay. Well, as soon as he says this, the cardinals gather around the Pope because they don't have any idea what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, Your Holiness, what was going on? And you said, well, and the Pope said, well, I raised 3 fingers,
Mm-hmm.
letting him know that God is the Father,
Mm-hmm.
Son, and the Holy Spirit. And he raised 1, reminding me that even more important than that is the unity of all on earth and in heaven. It's all one connected unity. He's brilliant. And the cardinal says, well, what happened next? And the Pope said, well, I put a circle around my head, letting him know that God is everywhere. And he pointed to the ground. He's so grounded and said there wouldn't be everywhere, unless we were standing on the earth. We're grounded. And the cardinal said, well, what happened next? And the Pope said, well, I took out bread and wine to let them know that our God forgives all mistakes, all sins. And he took out an apple, brilliant man that he is, reminding me that ever since the Garden of Eden, humanity is fundamentally flawed. So CCTV can stay. Meanwhile, we gather around you. And we say, Will, we don't understand what happened. And he said, well, Pope raised 3 fingers, telling us we had 3 days to leave. And I raised 1 finger, saying, I forget what it was. I raised 1 finger, saying that we don't want to leave. We don't want to leave 1 day, 3 days, any day. And then the Pope said, and then the CCTV said, what happened next? And you said, the Pope made a circle around his head, saying we had to even leave to the suburbs. And you pointed to the ground, saying, we're staying right here. And then we asked you, and then what happened next, Will? And you said, I don't know. He took out his lunch, so I took out mine. So I tell that story to, I hope it's true for me if I remember, that in relationships between people, especially the deeper they are, there can be different interpretations of the same actions and words. And that can help us get along better when we realize that.
I think I like that joke about he took out my lunch, so he took out his lunch, so I took out mine. But that was funny. I guess this comes back to my problem with KROK, is I think that, you know, that's all well and good and everything, and two sides to every story and all that type of stuff. But I think in today's world, when so many people have decided to just exist in their own reality and to abandon facts, and you know, it leads to things like I'm not going to vaccinate my kids, right? Or I'm not going to accept climate science, or all these, you know, other things. You know, I'm not going to, you know, accept, you know, facts behind gun control or whatever. All these things that actually lead to the world being a worse place because people decide to, as you know, the great show Mythbusters said, reject your reality and substitute their own. And I think that's dangerous, and I think it's bad for the world and for all of us.
So do you really think there's one reality?
Yep.
No, you really do? You don't come across that way? Because I have friends that think their God is the God, their way is the way. Isn't that a problem? Isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's the problem. That's what I just said.
No, but you're saying the same. That your way, I mean, for example, even with the climate, I'm not sure science can't solve it. I don't think in any way humanity is capable of stopping their dependence on fossil fuel.
Well, now who's the cynic?
I don't know though. At least I know I don't know.
We're going to be off in 10 seconds, though, so we're going to have to pick this up another time, I
Yes,
guess.
so well, thank you for listening to my stories.
Thank you.